I think against MadiNho, there's no clear favorite here. Though you said, Naokin, that MadiNho played a really, really, really good series against Cryok the last BSL season, and I haven't seen that. But from how much you've hyped it up, looks like MadiNho is actually a force to be reckoned with in TvT. And if that's the case, then definitely I would put him to be favored in this matchup.
Oh yes, for sure. In the last BSL, anybody out there that has not seen that, Cryok versus MadiNho on Whiteout, without a doubt, one of the best TvTs maybe in the history of BSL. That was a wild game. We've got them fighting over a specific portion of the map. It goes, well, I won't say how long it goes, but it goes for quite a while. It's super epic. So I do really like MadiNho in this particular matchup. Again, I haven't seen Kare's TvT unless I'm just completely blanking on something. I don't remember exactly what type of style MadiNho liked to play, but I do know that it was just pretty standard, whether it was Tank Goliath or Tank Wraith. I don't actually, was there mass vulture run wise?
Who knows, dude? I mean, it could, anything could happen. I mean, this is the thing, it's a new BSL season, BSL 10, and a lot of these players have also taken breaks between the previous BSL season, so we haven't seen them play in a while. So really anything could come out of any of these players, and this is kind of the group stages, especially the early group stages, are where you kind of expect players to set the tone in terms of how strong they're looking, their form, and just the types of styles they're willing to play. But this is going to be really interesting because they're both from Norway, and I'm assuming they probably talk to each other about strategy, so maybe they've played before, who knows. But it looks like we're ready to get into this game. It's going to be on Reap the Storm. Kare versus MadiNho. Winner gets out of Group H.
In the top left, in the olive green, it is Kare.
And in the top right, his compatriot in the brown Terran, it is MadiNho. And already out the gate, like you were talking about yesterday in terms of Reap the Storm and the positional imbalances on, the rotational asymmetry, basically. Looks like MadiNho got the best spots, right?
Yeah, MadiNho got the best spot. He can siege the high ground very easily if he is able to get into that position. That means that Kare for sure cannot give up the mineral only ramp. If he loses that, he's going to be in a world of hurt. Likewise, if MadiNho loses the mineral only ramp, he's going to be in a world of hurt. Now we've actually got some FP VOD. It looks like Kare coming in here. I wonder if we're going to see any aggressive play from either of these players. We, of course, don't see a forward Rax from Kare, but potentially MadiNho could be going for a forward Rax while we're looking at the FP view. Such a sick feature. It reminds me of the old OSL and MSL when you see them going to the FP view and just actually see the camera just going ballistic with all the APM and multitask. Now it looks like somebody's playing in windowed mode or something because we're not getting an actual accurate representation, or like it's kind of skewed off a bit, but overall this feature is super cool. Now I saw multiple SCVs getting queued up and I was thinking, well, we might see 14 command center, but instead it looks like both players are just going to go for 12 racks, 12 gas.
Yeah, very standard opening from both players here. No gasless, no 14 command center, no 8 racks. So both players kind of feeling each other out. Sometimes you see players in this situation, because it's a best of one, kind of just roll the dice. If you win, you win, and if you lose, well, you go down to a best of 3 situation, not the end of the world. But it looks like both players more inclined to play standard and safe, probably feeling confident against one another. Again, I don't think there's a very clear favorite between the two players here. So, not surprised to see this. Now, there's a lot of ways of playing TvT, a lot of different ways, especially after even before you expand. I mean, people can still go for stuff like 2-factory, we were talking about 2-factory vultures. I think fact port is not that fact port off one base is not that popular anymore. But even after you expand, then there's a lot of branching options there to be had. Whether one player chooses to go for Vulture Man, the other player chooses to go for Siege Tank and Wraith Man. So really, I'm interested to see here. I think Kare tends to make Vultures. I think he tends to play more Vultures in the early mid game. I don't know if MadiNho strikes me more as a tank player though, for sure.
Well, TvT is one of the matchups that has changed, I think, the most compared to other matchups since Remastered has come out. Because in the old days, something like Gasless, no. That was not a thing, because people just didn't know how to deal with fast tank pushes or proxy second factory. And nowadays, Gasless is something you see quite often. Also, even going into a fast command center after a factory was not that common. A lot of players would play 2 fact openers or 1 fact, 1 port. So it's really cool how TvT has changed simply since Remastered has come out, or in the later years of the pro scene of Brood War. So we do see that second factory is coming down for MadiNho. I think Kare is setting up for a second factory. Yeah, that's going to be a second factory. So far, mirrored builds, no real lead for either player. It's we are just going to have to wait and see, is it going to be an add-on for either one? Is somebody going to build 3 Vultures and go for it? It looks like MadiNho has snuck 2 Vultures across the map. And if Kare is feeling confident to go for an attack and gets countered by 2 Vultures, that could quickly add up to multiple SCV kills. And that looks like what we might actually see.
Yeah, this is very aggressive from both players. Usually you see the add-on come in at this point, even if you're going Vultures, because you do want to get that Vulture speed, or you want to get the Vulture mines, depending on what the other player is doing. But when you're going these kind of add-on less Vulture plays, it's meant to punish someone else also opening Vultures. It's really a lot of Vultures to be talked about, but both going for the same build there. And Kare, he's gonna get the upper hand in terms of sniping 2 Vultures for free, but MadiNho has 2 extra Vultures here reinforcing, but actually they missed the mark. They're gonna go for the Marines, and now they're gonna cut off the other 2 Vultures from Kare, and Kare very luckily does not get his weak Vulture focused. And this is so weird, you almost never see this in TvT, but like I said, they both opted for the most aggressive opening they could think of. So very, very aggro-oriented build order choices from both. And I wonder here, MadiNho looks like he's getting ahead. I wonder if one of them, at this point, do you even go for the add-on? I mean, maybe one of them is going to go for the armory. Maybe one of them is going to go for extra factories. Now, Kare pulling all his SCVs. He needs to just remain composed here because...
Landed the racks.
That's massive
support, and that also messes up the AI, and that's going to be 6 Vultures for MadiNho versus 4 of Kare. This could be game-changing for MadiNho. First Goliath comes out, but you can see it's just messing around behind the racks. It's got its AI messed up. SCVs are not repairing the Vultures, but that's because they can't. They're just getting blasted down by these 6 Vultures. He wipes out the entire SCV line. He's got speed, so he's going to pick off that SCV too. Now it comes down to how much damage can Kare get done with a counterattack, because if he just sits there and just basically takes the SCV damage, MadiNho's going to start running away with this game.
Yeah, that's so bad for Kare. He took so much damage there, basically lost like 10 or 15 SCVs, well 10 SCVs, at least 12 SCVs. That was a massive, massive loss for him, and SCV count in TvT is so important. It's such a macro matchup. I mean, it does get touted as like kind of this big positional matchup where maybe you would think, oh, you know, the unit count doesn't matter that much, but it really does, and especially SCV count matters a lot. And now behind this, I feel like, you know, Kare had a small timing there. Okay, this is what he's gonna do. He's gonna go for that the famed 4 Goliath drop. He had a nice timing there. Oh, he's getting cloak also, so very interesting from Kare. You know what's weird is that, I mean, he had a timing here. He should know that basically MadiNho was also on add-on lists, like a bunch of factories without an add-on. And wow, we're actually getting both FP views. This is really sick. We got Kare's, now we got MadiNho. MadiNho nice enough to get his camera up there with the kind of Viking horns representing Norway, representing the Scandinavian past. It's so cool that we're getting these FP views, dude.
I was not expecting to see the camera. That is quite hilarious. Well, we do. The add-on is completed on the starport, so a drop should be coming in. But MadiNho just has so much production, he should really just easily. Oh, actually, I forgot it's not drops. It's one port Wraith with clothes. What a weird counterplay. He must suspect that there's no Goliaths, but he lost his rack, so he knows that Goliaths are out. But I do see that there is no comsat. So maybe this is a way for Kare to get back into the game. The problem for him, though, is that Wraith has some of the slowest DPS. Okay, well, this is not what you want, because those tanks are about to set up in the position that I've been talking about every time I see Reap the Storm. Instead, 2 Wraiths are going to make him turn around, but I mean, 1 Goliath can deal with these 2 Wraiths, and the DPS is so low is that even if they cloak, they're not really going to kill 30 SCVs. Sure, they might kill 10, which is quite a lot, but not devastating amounts of damage.
Yeah, but MadiNho is nowhere close to detection, and this completely blindsided him. So even though this is going to be 2 Wraiths and quickly it's going to be 3 Wraiths, it's going to take a lot of. They're going to kill a lot of SCVs. Now MadiNho getting caught out of position. The tank siege just in time, but this is just like a man fight between tank Goliath. Not something you see every day in this matchup. And MadiNho, despite doing all that damage early on, he's kind of slipping up significantly here, and I think Kare is going to come with. He's just coming out swinging. He's doing so much damage, but MadiNho actually cleans up that attack while we weren't looking at it, and the drop actually from Kare had nothing loaded in it, just kind of had the starport rallied, and now he's going to lose the dropship for free. So kind of very back and forth situation, and MadiNho actually killed a bunch of SCVs, or I don't know if those SCVs got run away back into Kare's base, but somehow in this hectic situation, MadiNho looks like he's hanging on to his lead, but just losing tanks, and he's still not dealing with the cloak Wraiths in his base, I don't think.
Yeah, the Wraiths actually did way more damage than they should have, but both players just dealing out a crippling blow in the center of the map, losing both of their armies. I like Kare's position quite a bit now. He does have way more tanks than MadiNho, but the thing he doesn't have going for him is he doesn't have the factory count that MadiNho has. MadiNho still has 4 or 5 factories. Meanwhile, the loss of the racks in the early stages means he's had to delay the factories for quite a while, but it looks like we are just going to stabilize at this point. I see +1 is spinning for MadiNho, so that means he's going to be going into +2 relatively soon. But double drop coming out for Kare. The mines do see it, but does he actually see it?
Yeah, I mean, that could easily be anything on the map. It could be vultures, it could be drops, but look, the thing is, MadiNho had to make a couple turrets from before with Wraiths there, and you know what's really funny is that they're both making so many Goliaths. I think it's stagnating their builds a bit. I mean, you really want to see more vultures to kind of lighten up or loosen. Oh my god, drops right on top of all the turrets and all the Goliaths, and now this is going to get completely cleaned up here from MadiNho, and I feel like from this point, I mean, MadiNho is in such a commanding lead. He's up 20 supply. He needs to just go and take a command center at this point, and part of that is, like I was saying, when you're making just tank Goliath, you don't have that many extra resources to either add more factories or get a command center or keep upgrading. You can see both players are actually okay. MadiNho is actually on +1, but his starport is nowhere near finished, so science facility is nowhere in sight, and so it's going to be a while before MadiNho gets up to +2. The +1 upgrade really isn't that important until +2 hits, so Kare still has some wiggle room in terms of catching up for the upgrades there, but now MadiNho with the supply advantages. Oh my god, if he loses these tanks, he's going to go and set up somewhere on the map. You can see MadiNho is actually taking a 3rd base mid-right.
Yeah, mid-right is going up, and so that's going to be a big influx of cash for him pretty soon. But Kare still has a pretty strong standing army. Oh, he's actually double expanding. And that's going to be trouble for Kare because he needs to get a 3rd base pretty soon. He's also lost position on that side of the map, but there is no vision for MadiNho to actually siege the high ground. I think that's a bit of a mistake to just give it up. He could just sit there and just scan and make sure, I guess, until he's floated something over there that he's not getting siege from the high ground, but he is just going to play it safe. He's going to back off for now. be content with knowing he's got his 4 bases coming up pretty soon, while Kare is struggling to even float a command center to the 3rd base. So a nice pullback from MadiNho, and remember, he's gotten +1 weapon either completed or close to being completed, so he should be able to start +2 pretty soon.
Yeah, he should be, but he needs to get the science facility. There we go, it's almost done. So he's going to be able to start +2, a massive upgrade in this matchup. Of course, tanks two-shot other tanks. It's really, really crucial to get that upgrade as soon as you can, but without kind of, you know, if you get the upgrade too early, then you definitely stagnate your build, you kind of hamper it. So MadiNho getting in a really commanding lead yet again. The 3rd base is up, 4th base is coming up. He's getting tanks all over the map, playing very positionally aware. Kare somehow is ahead in supply. I suspect that is because he started to go into vulture production. He probably also has more factories, and vultures really do inflate your supply, but they're not that great on a supply, like per supply basis. So, you know, Kare is still in fighting shape, definitely not out of this game, but you can see positionally, the only thing that I dislike about MadiNho here is that, well, actually it makes a lot of sense. He's playing very conservatively, right? He's not taking these aggressive positions to cut Kare off, but that's because he's aware that Kare has dropship tech, and he's also aware that he's out expanding Kare. So if he were to also try and play aggressively onto the map and cut out Kare from key sections of the map, he would likely be overextending himself. So I really like how he's kind of playing back and just securing his bases, but at the same time, look at Kare's main army, and because Kare doesn't have expansions of his own to defend, he can consolidate his forces into a big push, and he needs to make something happen with this. He needs to gain like a very strong position onto the map to compensate for the fact that his expansions are just so late.
Yeah, he could think about trying to get a siege set up between the 3rd base and the natural, potentially for MadiNho. That way he can pick off at least top middle. Looks like that is the move that he's going to go for, command center being denied by 1 mine. And if he can deny top middle, at least that will open up the potential to take top left and top middle. So that would give him 5 gas. Still, he would need to make something happen to deny bottom middle for MadiNho so he doesn't get out expanded, but still 5-6 gas, that's a ton of gas, and I'm actually surprised that the supplies are so close. Kare was ahead for a while despite MadiNho having way more factories for the majority of the game, so Kare's done a really good job to keep his SCE count up. He must have been continually building them. You can see he's still building them, but he's doing a really good getting his econ rolling. 3rd base is about to land. And as you were saying, MadiNho has to split his army up quite a bit. So I am really just waiting for Kare to feel confident to bust top middle, because he needs to do something. He's down a base. We can see MadiNho's building up drops, but he hasn't used them just yet. Science facility is done for Kare too, so he's going to have +2 pretty soon. But we can, I think we saw, no, +1 still for the tanks on MadiNho, so not behind in upgrades.
Yeah, the thing is though, MadiNho, he's not playing an aggro style at all. Okay, this is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be dropships, as you mentioned, Nyokin, but MadiNho isn't really playing to kind of hit any timing with his economic advantage. The thing is, like, yeah, he's actually, or he was at least, massively ahead in terms of his expansion timings, but if you don't translate that into some sort of like factory flood timing push, or like maybe you add starports to get into rates or get drops. So it looks like drops are going to be his weapon of choice here. But the thing is, look, he took such a passive position that he only has his side of the map. And Kare, because he actually went for vultures, he has way more map control. Those mines giving him a lot of breathing space, especially particularly in the bottom right side of the map. There are mines scouting for him. And somehow Kare is allowed to take this top left position. So, you know, MadiNho kind of slowing a bit too much here, slowing down a bit too much and giving Kare a lot of breathing room. But now the tempo is about to pick up again as MadiNho is going to reveal what he essentially spent a lot of his resources in, and that's going to be big drops. And that first drop is always going to catch someone off guard, and Kare does not expect this. So I expect, is MadiNho going to go for this base, or he's He's just going to fly by it and go straight for the main. So hyper aggressive move. I don't know if this is going to pay off for him. There's 2 more turrets. They're going to kill. If they don't kill any dropships, that's going to be really lucky for MadiNho. So he gets to unload all his units. But the thing is, look at how scattered they are. You really want to have the tanks kind of bunched up in an area so that they can shoot down all the incoming tanks. I think Kare might be able to deal with this, but MadiNho actually pulls back the tanks. He's got a nice 5 tank setup in Kare's back base there. So if Kare does not clean this up, and he's not going to clean it up efficiently, and he's behind on supply, so this is going to be a really successful drop from MadiNho. He's still getting so many tank kills with these 5 tanks and buying so much time. MadiNho needs to, in this, during this time, he needs to be making something happen out on the map so that he can capitalize on this drop. I don't know if it's whether he's going to load up another drop or if he's going to A-move a position. We saw earlier MadiNho is actually making a lot of vultures. I would like to see him use those vultures and unsiege tanks and just break and just bust a position on the map somewhere.
Yeah, what a sick drop from MadiNho, getting so much value out of those 5 tanks and a couple of Goliaths, but he didn't instantly reload, but he does have a ton of units up there, and at least it drew the majority of Kare's army out of position, and he's going to use that time to bust top left, and that's going to put Kare back down on 3 or 4 bases. I think he is taking bottom left at the same time. He is scrambling to get up multiple tanks. Now 5 tanks on high ground is hard to bust, so this might actually be a mistake, but D-Matrix comes in. He's going to try and plow this down, but I don't know if he actually can. It looked like 100% he would, but the tank count is a little bit too high for Kare. So Kare, with a really nice hold, scrambling to get up those tanks just in the nick of time, and he's going to deny this base he's going to deny MadiNho from taking this base. But I do see that MadiNho has got his 5th base up and running, but Kare is keeping up in this game. He's got 5 bases himself.
Yeah, MadiNho was way too slow with that. He really needed to kind of do that while the drop was going off, and it's obvious where he's going to attack from Kare's point of view. So as soon as he dealt with the drop in his main, he just sent his units to the most obvious location. MadiNho was just too slow, and it's just that ramp. Look at that ramp. You can't get up that if there's more than 4 tank siege on Kare's side. So Kare basically unbreakable here unless MadiNho commits to like a crazy 12 drop attack or something like that. But MadiNho instead, he's had such a massive advantage this game, but I think just not executing as well as he could be much more in control in this game than he is. And look how much vision Kare has because of these mines all over the map. MadiNho needs to just take the middle of the map and pressure all bases from the center. Looks like MadiNho found another successful drop. This is going to be a really good drop though, because I think it's going to... He only drops a couple of tanks and keeps more units in the dropships though, and Kare already has units reinforcing, so he's not going to take that much damage from this drop, and I feel like that was a missed opportunity for MadiNho to essentially deny this bottom expansion.
Yeah, he thought that there is not going to be any incoming reinforcements, and the dropships need to unload the rest of their payload, otherwise this base will be up and running for Kare. It looks like MadiNho's recognized that and does continue to drop the rest of his army, but SCVs are there. They should be able to deal with these Goliaths. Maybe not. Okay, he does have a couple Goliaths now coming in, so Kare's going to hold this too. And something that MadiNho didn't do during all of this is he didn't ever secure bottom middle, and that's a base that you must take, even if it's just the high ground base. That at least denies the mineral only from ever being taken. It denies the bottom nat being taken, and that will always give you an advantage on a 3-player map to take the other main. So a bit of a misstep there, but as played, still 5 base versus 5 base. But look at that huge bank for MadiNho, and there's where all of the resources are going. It's 4-port Wraith, but I don't know, does he have weapon upgrades? Does Kare have armor upgrades? That is a massive drop. 7 dropships for Kare. He can literally just probably click any base he wants, and it's probably going to get wiped out.
Yeah, this MadiNho tech switch here is maybe a bit too slow, and like you said, the upgrades are really important. Now, fortunately for MadiNho, it looks like actually Kare is going for...
Go ahead, HQ.
armor upgrades, I guess, but MadiNho is not actually getting any air upgrades, so unfortunately for MadiNho, like I said, there are no ground upgrades or armor upgrades just yet on Kare's side, so those raids will be able to do something. Now, MadiNho is trying to bust top left. I don't know if he's going to be successful as we get to see the FP view of both players. MadiNho completely unaware of the big drop that's about to happen. Bottom right, you can see it happening right now. He just now sees it, and he doesn't have units in position to defend, so he's going to lose this one gas expansion. But the rates are revealed, and they're going to completely clean this up for free now. This is pretty good in general, I think. I mean, Kare is unhappy to just completely lose the drop here, but at least he knows rates are out on the board now without losing his own bases for it. But at the same time, top left is not mining anymore, so now slowly but surely it looks like Kare is getting into a very losing position. He's completely broke. He's nowhere near maxed. Meanwhile, MadiNho has a 6k 1k bank with 191 supply, so MadiNho in a very commanding lead. But as you guys may know, TvT, it's very hard to close games out, and it looks like maybe these wraiths were the right answer, but the game is far from over.
Oh, drop's going to intercept these wraiths, but all the drop ships are going to fall. But how many wraiths actually fall? And also only 2 Goliaths unload. So how many wraiths can they actually kill? Well, the answer is 2 Goliaths kill tons and tons of wraiths because wraiths deal no damage. But something that I thought was never ever going to happen is it's actually Kare that has tanks on the high ground to take bottom middle. So 5 base versus 5 base, or 6 base versus 5 base, since MadiNho has that mineral only. But Kare has the advantage if he can stabilize the game and get that bottom middle up and running. But it looks like he's not going to be able to, because these wraiths are picking off tanks left and right. It's going to wipe out that tank line there. And if he can, or if MadiNho can get tanks set up on that side of the map, finally he will be able to push through to top left. But we've got a wraith switch coming in for Kare. If he can cloak maybe like 8 or so wraiths and pick off all of these wraiths while they're not being looked at, that could be a way for Kare to swing back in his favor.
Yeah, I don't like this wraith switch from Kare. He doesn't have the economy behind him, doesn't have the infrastructure to keep up with this wraith production from MadiNho. I mean, maybe a couple Valkyries would be good, but Kare should just keep upgrading his ground army, get that armor upgrade, and just go tank Goliath and just bust through positions here on the map. I mean, you see, as the wraiths there, I guess there's just oh no, okay, so actually, never mind, Kare does have 1 Valkyrie there, so, you know, especially if MadiNho doesn't know about Kare's wraith switch and about Kare's air switch and doesn't make Valkyries himself, he might actually end up losing air control, which would be really bad. But it doesn't really matter, to be completely honest with you, because MadiNho has such a strong economic lead. He's about to take another base onto the map. He has a positional advantage on the map. This is looking really good for MadiNho, and you know, we saw maybe for a second Kare might be able to take 12 or 6 o'clock. That's really kind of his last hope, is to secure this side of the map, because then he has 2 more bases to work with, 2 more gas to work with, and suddenly both players are more or less on the same bases. Though MadiNho has the third, like he has 2 third bases working, or 2 third and fourth bases, like the cluster of the third and fourth bases working for him, whereas Kare only has 1. So in the ultra late game, MadiNho still has way more resources to work with given the state of the map. But if Kare wants to stay in this game, he needs to secure 6 o'clock.
Well, Kare, even though he has the lack of bank, he still has a pretty strong standing army. And even though he's down 60 supply, you have to remember that like 50 of it is in wraiths, which sure, they have heavy upgrades, but wraiths are not like a super strong army by themselves. If Kare gets like 3 Valkyries, you're going to see 50 wraiths just instantly get blown up. So don't be confused here. There's still a chance for Kare to win this game. He needs to secure bottom middle, which is what he's doing right now. He has a sizable tank line. He does need to get up some turrets at the ramp too to make sure that that doesn't get compromised. But as played, if we think about what bases he has the left side, so he's got 4 bases there. Bottom middle gives him 5. If he takes the net, that's still 6. Versus MadiNho right now has 7, but it's even gas bases, I think. Whereas I think the only real advantage that Kare will have is it's just going to be an extra mineral only if he can secure both of those. So overall, a very even game. 10,000 mineral bank for MadiNho, though.
Yeah, man, that's so much money to work with. Do you think? I mean, do you think he's thinking about making battlecruisers at any time? It's kind of hard on this map, eh? Getting battlecruisers.
Well, I think at some point he's going to go BC. He's trying to use the race to tank for these. Oh, he's going to find the race, and there's multiple Valkyries here. Who's going to come out and on top in this fight? There's one Valkyrie for MadiNho, but these are cloaked race. He's not paying attention. MadiNho's losing everything. There's just way too many race, and now that he knows he's going to win the air fight, he picks off all of these dropships, and even if they unload, there's multiple tanks there. Look at the supplies plummet. Kare's brought it back to 130 supply for both. He's now at 140 supply, even has supply lead, and now he can take the natural. What a huge swing and blunder there.
Yeah, MadiNho gets his Air Force completely reset, and I mean, at the same time, I can look at his bank, and again, like I said, he has essentially 2 extra bases if they are to split the map right now. I mean, Kare actually has 2 mineral, like he has the 2 mineral onlys compared to MadiNho's 1 mineral only, but MadiNho has an extra 3rd and 4th base compared to basically Kare's entirety, you know, just compared to Kare's side of the map. So MadiNho has 2 extra geysers to work with. That's a pretty significant economic advantage or resource advantage. But at this point, man, like they're both getting into air upgrades. The game has stagnated in terms of it's been locked down. I don't think any player is going to feel comfortable going back into a ground-based game, so maybe they stay with predominantly air battles. And I really do wonder at this point who's going to be the first player to switch into BCs. The thing is, on Reap the Storm, BCs are pretty hard to make work. It's not like a map like Fighting Spirit or Circuit Breaker, like one of those very symmetrical maps where you have a very clear kind of separation in a split map situation. Here, going BCs, it's kind of hard to bounce from one side to the other, and it's hard to lock down all sides with just tanks. So looks like MadiNho building those control towers on the starport, so I think he's getting ready to get that battlecruiser switch going, researching Yamato. Kare probably not yet doing the same, but soon he's going to follow as well. You know, both players recognizing that they're getting into this stalemate situation now. Just now there's a science facility. I'm assuming the other science facilities may be out floating, or maybe it died in the drop or something. So kind of unfortunate that he has to rebuild that, but he's gonna have a physics lab anytime now, so he's gonna be able to match. Well, it's going to be hard for Kare to match MadiNho's production at this point because he doesn't have the same bank.
Well, look at this. I'm just now realizing if MadiNho sieges tanks right there, he can actually knock down those turrets, and that could set up something like a drop potential, but I think the drop stages are over. And I actually think Kare's got this game, and the reason I think he has this game is because even though MadiNho's mined way more resources, he's going to be depleted on gas much faster than Kare. These bottom 2 bases are fresh gas for him. And even though they're even on gas right now, at some point, there's going to be a huge influx of gas for Kare, whereas it's just going to be complete depletion for him. We have a huge fight in the middle of the map, but this is Tank Goliath versus Tank Wraith, and there's enough Goliaths to easily overwhelm these Wraiths. And now there's nothing to defend these starports except for a handful of BCs, which are super strong, but there's 6 Goliaths here, 7 Goliaths that have really long range. They're heavily upgraded to fast D matrix. Okay, well, that's one way you deal with Goliath. And now Kare better turn around, because these tanks are not going to get out alive if they just sit here.
Wow, MadiNho is so fortunate with his timing there. Battlecruisers pop out just in time, and he has D matrix there to supplement them, so no way those Goliaths can fight against Kare. I thought Kare maybe found this sick timing right before BC's hit to do a lot of damage and take some very crucial positions, but you know, now MadiNho is in a very good spot. The only thing is you cannot stop making tanks, and BCs alone are not good in this matchup because Goliaths obviously deal very efficiently with BCs, so you need to have tanks with them just to make sure that they don't fight Goliaths head on. And so I would like to see MadiNho unsiege some of his tanks that are defending some of these positions and kind of start pushing against Kare. And you need, you know, once you have this BC advantage, all you have to do is join BCs up with tanks and slowly push positions. You Yamato down tanks, then siege up so that the Goliaths can engage you. And Kare has a predominantly ground-based army at this point, which doesn't mean he's out of this game just yet, because of course he can still threaten to attack kind of weakened position. When you invest so much supply into air like MadiNho has, that means that he doesn't have as many tanks out on the map, which means there are definitely weak spots in his defense. There are some bases that are gonna for sure be assailable by Kare, but the reality is top left has been mining for a long time. That's probably almost depleted. Middle top has been also mining for a long time for MadiNho. I mean, I'm guessing the gas is probably almost depleted. The minerals at this point don't really matter for MadiNho, so he's very smartly positioning himself on the side of the map where he has the most gas on, which is the bottom right side of the map, and that's exactly where Kare needs to be positioned as well, because those are his two fresh bases. So positionally, it's going to be really hard for Kare, because Kare does not want to attack top left. He's probably just assuming those bases have been functional for way too long for them to be of any more value. So they're both stuck on this side of the map, but MadiNho has the vastly superior army composition, which is basically Battlecruiser tank. I mean, that's going to beat anything in TvT.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to a game from a while ago of Terra versus Koget on Bluestorm, where Koget was massively behind, but because he transitioned into BCs faster and Terra could never actually push through, all of the tanks he built meant nothing, because the tanks don't help you in a BC battle. So there's a ton of tanks. There's no way MadiNho ever wins a ground fight, but unless Kare can win an air fight, that's irrelevant. These 6 BCs, or actually 10 BCs, have no counterplay right now. There's not an overwhelming amount of Wraith to take them out. There's no BCs for Kare himself because his science facility is floating and never got the add-on. So really, he's just stuck with all these tanks that really don't help him at all. I think he should consider killing some of them off. He's approaching max, but there's nothing he can do to engage this BC army. It's like 11 BCs versus, what is that, 15 Wraith? How on earth are you ever going to win a fight like that?
I think Kare doesn't even have 3-3 on his air just yet, so MadiNho actually is gonna, yeah, 1-1 Wraith is gonna be pitiful. They're gonna get absolutely blasted out of this world by these battlecruisers, and they're gonna get cloaked up. But I mean, there's so much scan to work with the vessels right there. And the thing is, if he fights with the Goliaths, that's gonna be really bad. MadiNho kind of out of position, but look how fast Wraiths get blown up by battlecruisers. They really do suck against battlecruisers, but the Goliaths finding connections onto the battlecruisers, so he's gonna whittle down the battlecruiser count, and he can't afford to lose these battlecruisers for free. I mean, it's just gonna set him back. It's, you know, we're gonna extend this game even longer, and at this point, you know what's funny is that MadiNho is actually Yamatoing the Goliaths when really he should be Yamatoing the tanks that are the furthest up in front and sieging behind. Like the point between the point behind BC tank against basically non-BC compositions is that you can creep forward ever so slightly into lock the down positions by basically just Yamatoing the opponent's tanks and having your siege tanks ready to siege just in range of those previous tanks, right? So, but instead he's using the Yamato on the Goliaths, which really is there's just no point for that because you already have tanks there to respond to Goliath. So anyway, kind of not the cleanest of executions, and at this point, I mean, this is a really difficult position to break, and if anything, I think trading those battlecruisers there for the command center and all those raids was just not the best trade. I think what's best for MadiNho is just to make sure that he keeps his battlecruiser count high so that he starts banking those Yamatos so that he really starts punishing this ground position from Kare.
Well, MadiNho sent out a few SCVs to their death, and that's something you never want to see as Kare, because now he's probably feeling like he's in a bit of trouble to sack his own SCVs to keep up. But actually, I don't think that's actually the case. Even though there's a huge mineral bank, there isn't a huge gas bank. Sure, 2.7k is decent, but as I was saying, MadiNho's gonna be mined out in the geysers very soon. Now this is the position that we've been waiting for every single time we see Reap the Storm, and we're finally getting it 37 minutes into the game. And how do you engage this army now? There's not enough raids, all of your tanks are across the map, and this is high ground, so if Kare wants to come back and fight it, he's gonna have to be going uphill. He doesn't have anything like D-Matrix to soak up hits, and he has to deal with BCs too. So this, I think, is the move that MadiNho was looking for. And now he's going to wipe out all the factories, he's going to wipe out all the starports, and there's just not enough race to engage any of this.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be annoying for Kare to deal with because, you know, he's losing all his production, but the reality is he still has mining and he still has another main base to work with, so he can technically rebuild all his infrastructure. He has the bank to do it. It's going to cost him a lot, so definitely this was a good move from MadiNho. It looks like Kare instead, he's going to look for this counterattack, but this position is going to be so hard to break. No matter how many units you have, there's just so many tanks, it's kind of overwhelming. But here it comes, he pulls a bunch of SCVs, soaking up a lot of the siege tanks. But the thing is, Kare is just not in range to siege up himself. Just now he sieges up. There's a lot of turrets covering for the tanks, but actually I think Kare has enough here to bust this position, but he's going to take a lot of losses. Again, tanks sieged up in defensive positions are just so much more cost efficient, and right before the battle is done, though, Kare busts through. He actually lost over, you know, a significant amount of his tanks, and now he has no way of replenishing that, whereas MadiNho still has a bank, he still has his production. So that bust there, all in all, was a failure, because now MadiNho can actually remax, and Kare is stuck on 95 supply. He really has nothing going for him at this point, and it's honestly a matter of time until he GG's out. Like, it's really hard for Kare to come back from this position.
Yeah, he lost all of his tanks. There's still 9 BCs alive. MadiNho's just got an unstoppable BC army. He can't even rebuild factories because he's got to rebuild his barracks. Now we finally probably have the final engagement, Wraith versus BC. All of the Wraiths are going to be taken out. The BCs are just so tanky, deal out so much damage. And this is going to be MadiNho moving on out of Group G or Group H in a crazy game, 40 minutes long. There's the top out, GG. So nicely done from MadiNho. But it was starting to get close because Kare securing bottom middle. It looked like MadiNho was going to let it slip away, but the resources just a little bit too much to overcome.
Yeah, and that was a really impressive display there from MadiNho. Just such a long game, but both players playing their hearts out, and it was really close throughout. I mean, honestly, there's no. I mean, I feel like MadiNho had a clear advantage the whole game, but he just wasn't able to sort of translate that into an efficient win. But he managed to grind the game out. So.